Welcome to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast with Julie and Thomas Hobby. We are marriage coaches who help couples with pain points about money, intimacy, and communication go from being overwhelmed to being secure in their marriage.
If this is your first time listening to us, thanks for checking out our podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and a review. Let's dive into this episode.
Today we're going to be talking about the influence social media has on marriages. Is it a blessing? Is it a curse?
Yeah.
But I think we all can agree that it may not be one extreme or the other, but
Right.
There are pros and cons to all things about social media. But we're going to be diving in specifically about pros and cons of social media in a marriage. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, exactly. I think that we could all probably sit there if we all had to put our phones down for a second and actually speak to somebody, we could probably list off some of the, main things that are good or bad about social media.
Yeah.
We all could do that. And so we're going to try not to go into the obvious, not to state the obvious too much. But I think that kind of tailoring it to how it can impact your marriage positively and negatively are good things to keep in mind around your relationship.
Yeah.
Because nothing should stand in the way between you and your spouse. And if that comes down to a device, you have to really put boundaries on that as well. So let's talk about the positive side first.
Right.
Obviously, if you're both using social media, which most people are, there's a handful who might still be holding out, from getting sucked in, and good for you, kudos. Like that's
I don't know, those people, I don't trust them. They're like, oh, I'm not on social media, and they may not be the posting type, but they're still on social media. They're still scrolling, they're still seeing, because they know too much about me to not be on social media, but they just don't post every single day, maybe like some of us do.
Yeah, and I think there's varying ranges of self-control that certain people have. I have had to actually set limits on myself. I've had to download another app to keep me locked out of social media, and I try and stay out Monday through Friday, and then open it up on the weekends so that I can kind of reconnect and see what's going on with the world and so on. But I try to put limits. We'll get to boundaries a little bit later in this episode, but some of the positives. I mean, social media is exactly that. It's a media that you can consume, but keeps social engagement open. So it helps you to maintain connection with people, and possibly find other people with similar interests or hobbies or stages of life or things like that. I mean, a great example of that, it's not a marriage example per se, is, one of our sons has a feeding tube. And so you found a great community of, I guess maybe it's just moms. I'm not in the group, but it's moms and dads, parents of kids with G-tubes.
Yeah. And so that's where I'm like, don't say get off social media, because that's kind of the first place to go. And so many people actually post in those groups. It's like, have you talked to your doctor about this? But yeah, like that, I think it's the new, it's not the new Google, but you go that to, in specific groups like that is like my go-to for like, I gotta ask this question. I know I'm going to get answers, from real people.
Yeah.
So I think, that's what we hope, even with our marriage puzzle stuff that we put out, like we're real people and connect and message us and things like that. So you're right, people can use social media to find community. Even like us using it together. I don't know if that's later in your notes, but like how many times do I send you a reel or you send me something or post that we're separate, you're at work or something, but it's like, oh, you're thinking of me if you saw that, or, inspired by that, or lots of parenting things that we, send each other and talk about. And so I think that's still community, because I do that to my friends and sister and all that, and my brother. We're always sending memes and reels. And so that sense of community has been a positive, I would say, from social media.
Yeah, I think finding that community, and obviously we're talking about this and how it impacts a marriage. So think about your stage of life in your marriage. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably, newly married between 20 years of marriage. I mean, hopefully we can help anybody and everybody out there with some of the things that we've gone through in our marriage. But, we know there's a certain demographic that's probably going to relate to us more than others. You may be new parents or prospective parents, hoping to be new parents soon or one day. And you're trying to figure out how that's all going to kind of fit in to your marriage. And so find that community. Define what your community should look like. Sit down with your spouse and define what kind of communities are we going to try to be a part of in social media, because that's going to help. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to get to boundaries a little bit later, but that's going to help create a healthy boundary so that, you're not looking in one area, I'm looking in another area. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I like playing video games. You don't. So I might be a part of some gaming communities, and that's okay. But figure out what's going to build up your relationship as a whole and put that at the forefront of your community search.
I think you said discuss it and define your community. Is that what you said? Because I can say I've been part of groups that I've had to leave because, I'm like, oh, this person said this or this person. And I'm like telling you all about the drama. And you're like, that's not life-giving. Like, why are you part of that community?
Right.
So there's that. And, we can go down a whole rabbit hole on that. But just from a marriage perspective, that was so nice. Like, it was so blunt and honest, but I needed to hear that. Like, you're right. And since I've left those groups or maybe hidden these people, like, I'm not as stressed and our marriage is healthier.
Yeah. Well, and with searching for that community, you're going to gain access to that, influential type of information to help you in your relationship. So if you define the community that you want to be a part of properly, and you set it up to be and you look for those positive, uplifting, building up communities, that's going to be better. I mean, if you're a part of those, gossip communities, I mean, let's be real. If you've ever been on the Nextdoor app, good Lord, like HOAs, like get together on the Nextdoor app, just like that's just a breeding ground for hate. I feel like, I mean, that is, I've had to try hard to get away from that specific app because, man, they hound you with emails and they try and keep you hooked in. It's a nasty app. Like it's, and it's all about the people in your neighborhood. It's terrible. Like it's just a breeding ground to hate everyone, hate all your neighbors, which is not what the Bible tells us to do. Like love your neighbor as yourself. So, I think that, again, defining that community that you want to be a part of and what type of content that you're looking for. And if you're not finding that content in that community, exit that community, because you need to be putting positive things into your relationship. And if you're seeing things that are going to instill doubt and doubt of trust in your spouse or in your relationship, or doubt that your relationship can make it, that's going to be what comes to happen in your relationship. But if you're looking for things that are going to build your relationship up and they're going to inspire you to make your marriage better, that's where you're going to want to be. So make sure you define that and keep looking for that. Hopefully we're that place for you. I mean, find us at Marriage Puzzle on social media.
That's a good community. There's also probably an aspect of like comparison,
right?
Which then can be like the negative side of social media, like especially in marriage. And I say that with us putting marriage stuff out there. We were just talking today. We need to do some more maybe like funny reels or relevant like reels to see our personality and stuff like that. But I think I've been hesitant because I haven't wanted people to compare to like thinking that we have this perfect marriage and everything's put together in our family.
Right.
So we want to be real. I feel we are in the podcast, but had to clear the Legos off the table again to record tonight. Yeah. But yeah, comparison is real. I think with so many influencers out there, and they're putting their highlight reel. We all know that.
Yeah. But
I've just kind of tried to, in my own mindset, like again, what you said with community, find the pages, the influencers that I want to follow, I want to seek and learn from, and just know that that's them, and their life is going to look different than mine, and I want mine to look different than theirs. Not that it's like a negative. If it's negative, I shouldn't be being influenced by it, but just know, like, everyone has different jobs, everyone has different rhythms, everyone has different everything. So why should I compare and think I want to be that? I should want to be different.
Well, and I think what you said that was the most important there is it's a highlight reel. Is you're not getting a full 100% picture of what's happening in that person's life. And although we try to be as transparent as possible, nobody's getting a full 100% transparent view into our life as well. Yeah. And so we try to be as real as possible, but nobody's like, it's not the Truman Show, right? You know, and that wasn't even real. But I think that what I'm kind of getting at is if it's just a highlight reel, you're not seeing a lot of the negative stuff that happens. And so, you know, you have to, that's where you have to lay down the comparison. You have to find the things in that, you know, if you're being influenced by comparison, that can be okay to a degree if it's going to help you to improve and grow and build on yourself and better yourself and your relationship with your spouse. But if it's just like, you know, you're seeing, we all know, like I said, I didn't want to be obvious from in this discussion, but like if you're seeing people just, you know, going on crazy trips and stuff like that, and it's like that is literally not our life. Like we could tell you stories about, you know, if you've listened to very many of our podcasts, you probably know having 4 kids is hard. We chose it, so like I'm not complaining about it. I love them all, and it's a great season of life. Day to day is definitely difficult, but anybody who has kids is day to day is difficult. Anybody who has just a job day to day is difficult. So I'm not trying to complain about ours in comparison to anybody else's. But if you're looking at stuff like that, that's, you know, people are just, you know, traveling and going on excursions and, you know, spending money and doing all kinds of crazy things, and then that may not be what's going to be lifting you up. That may be what's actually going to be dragging you down. It can be fun in moderation for entertainment purposes, but if you get too far down that trail, then you're really just going to start comparing, which is going to create discontent in your marriage. And that has to stop. Like, that can't happen.
Yeah, if you're like, oh wow, look at this couple, or this guy makes all this money, and you know, you can start dreaming up this life with the next person to get all these things or whatever, if that's your fancy, whatever, you know, fill in the blank of if it's farm life or traveling or whatever. But so that's real, that those fantasies can come in, and then there's a wedge in your marriage that you didn't even mean to. It was all pure imagination and thought. So for me, I always think, like, when I start slipping into comparison, or even if this person drives a nicer car than we have, or we have a minivan. I mean, it's full of Cheez-Its and Cheerios on the floor. Like, it's a mess.
It's like we went to the beach and they're just crushed crumbs. Like, it's bad.
I promise we vacuum it. But anyway, that's just the stage of life we're in. So when I start going down that comparison, you know, whether it be to the, like I said, the car next to me or social media, I just like, man, that person's probably well in debt. That's when I start thinking that, then I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Right.
Like we have our goals and dreams and vacations that we want to take, but I can't just start picturing a life outside of my own family and marriage because I think I want all those things when really that person could be like just financially strapped.
Right. And I mean, that's a really good way to think of it, right? If you're starting to sense that struggle of discontentment because you're allowing that content to influence you, then that's like what you're doing is you're starting to feel that, and you've triggered yourself to say like, no, this is going to be how I break free of that discontentment. Is I don't want to have a huge boatload of debt, so if I just assume that person is in a ton of debt to create this lifestyle, then it's going to make me not want that lifestyle. And so, you've just developed a way to set a boundary for yourself and help eliminate that discontentment. Now, that's not going to be the same boundary that you can set for everything. And that may not be true, but if it helps you to kind of break free of that, then utilize it. I think that's great. I mean, aside from that, we talked about at the very beginning, discussing the type of communities that you want to be a part of on social media, and making sure that that's going to be healthy for your relationship. And so that's going to be really opening up to your spouse and sharing like, hey, it makes me uncomfortable that you're a part of this community. I don't feel like it's building up our marriage. I feel like it, can, could cause you to stumble and wander, and I don't want that. Like, putting that out there and being vulnerable with your spouse is going to be very important, but also saying like, what do we together think that would be the best place for us to go and find information that's going to help our marriage that we can do together. So make sure that you're doing that. Make sure that you're setting those boundaries so that you know exactly where the boundaries are, so that you're not crossing them. And so that if there is a boundary that gets crossed, a discussion can be had about that without hopefully it turning into a big, huge fight. It can be a discussion. You can apologize. You can forgive. You can move forward, and you can continue building and working on your marriage to make it better.
Yeah, but you're talking about tangible boundaries too. Like, we have those, maybe even like unsaid, but maybe one time we had to talk about them. So if you need better boundaries in your marriage for this, then discuss. But like, we don't have phones at the table, so our dinner time table, and so that's not a problem. It's really, I've been like catching myself lately though, it's harder than it sounds. Like, that's a rule that we have. Like, I don't have my phone at the table, but when it's on the counter near me or behind me and we're eating and I get a text message and you hear the sound, it's so tempting to still go get it and look, instead of cultivating that boundary of like, no, like, we don't eat dinner for hours. Like, right. That person can wait. And so just being honest, like, we have this boundary, but it's still a struggle.
Yeah.
And so for that, I think, like, when I'm convicted of that, I'm like, right now I'm looking at you in the eyes and I'm having a conversation with you. And so you will insert anyone, you're having this conversation and then you're like, oh, hold on a second. Let me see, or may not even say hold on. I might just walk away and see what this person has to say. Right. See if it's better than you, or like whatever. Like,
that's how it comes
rude
off.
Would that be?
Oh, yeah.
And like, I don't think you would do that socially, and we do that with our phones. And I know we're talking about social media, and I said that with a text message, but same thing. I think social media can then become so addicting of what are people posting, or I gotta take, I used to post all the time. Like, this cute thing would happen, so I gotta post it right then. And now I'm like, naturally, I take pictures of the kids all the time, and I'm trying to like even wait till the end of the month and then be like, here's our month recap. Yeah. And it's my highlight reel.
Your highlight reel.
It is, and I'll own that, but I'm trying to then be like a little bit more present, take the pictures, and it can wait a few days to, instead of telling the world where I am, what I'm doing, and like get in the trap of just the validation or whatever I was getting from that. Because that's like a personal thing for me, but I didn't want it to affect our marriage, because that's where it can be like the addiction and that, you know, like drug, if you will, like all these other people, when your husband, your wife is right there, right there. And just hold on a minute, everybody, because I need to look my spouse in the eyes and just talk to them about my day instead of posting about it for the world to see.
Right. Yeah, I think that that's really important. Having the boundaries, you know, within social media is one aspect, but having the actual physical boundaries of not getting to social media, like not even getting to there during certain times. And just, we can sit here all day and blame the tech companies for how they've sucked us in. Let's be real. Everyone sets their alarm on their phone to go off in the mornings. So what's the first thing you touch? Your phone.
Yeah.
I can't say good morning to you without turning off the alarm on my phone first. It's, I mean, I could, but who's going to deal with that annoying noise, right? I mean, you're going to turn that off. And so, so you have to, we have to be realistic about that and know that they have, but we also have the ability to put it down. We also have the ability to say like, hey, you know what? We're not going to do it during dinner. But those same tech companies have also built in plenty of automations to automate certain times of the day that you can be on do not disturb and not receive those texts. So you need to think through that, discuss that with your spouse, build those times in, and figure out, you know, when it's just, that's going to be tucked away. I mean, you made a good point about, you know, when it's so convenient to just check something and how rude that can be. We had a boss once tell us a story that I don't remember exactly how the story went, but he said, you know, he was meeting with someone for an interview, and it was like a 30-minute interview at a coffee shop, and the person checked their phone like 9 times during the 30-minute interview. And he said, I didn't hire that person.
Yeah.
I mean, 9 times. Like, what are you doing when you're trying to get a job where someone's going to pay you that X number of times was too many to check your phone? But, you know, that's what can happen in your marriage too. How many nights have we sat on the couch ready to watch a TV show together after the kids have gone to bed, and we both scrolled for 15 minutes, like waiting for the other person to be ready. Like, oh, well, if you're scrolling, I'm going to scroll for a few minutes till you're done, and then you see. It's just this cycle. And so you have to create and utilize the automations that you can build in to turn those things off at certain times to force you back to that face-to-face time with your spouse. Or maybe it's not face-to-face, it's just that quality time, spending time together doing something. And maybe it is that physical boundary of putting your devices away somewhere else, farther away from you. Because there's a big difference between leaving your phone on the counter during dinner and having it in your pocket and not getting it out during dinner. One's a lot harder than the other. And it's just that extra few feet of space that can change the entire game.
Yeah, I mean, I would say same with like car rides, right in the car. You can still, like, person driving can be on their phone and the other one's still scrolling.
Well, like, they can. I see tons of people do that every day, like all the time. It's ridiculous.
There's that.
Don't get me on my soapbox.
That's my, like, well, let me clear my social media notifications or whatever. And I'm like, still like, no, this is actually like, we get to sit next to each other. What can we talk about? And so, yeah, just like, don't overthink when we say boundaries, or you have to, you know, have a detox.
You don't got to go get a flip phone.
You don't have to be the ones that are going off social media for a month and they've never done that, and then they like completely go weird because they've, you know, they can't do it.
But then you see the little green dot on their name, so you know they're on. They're just watching. They're just not posting.
That's why I said don't trust the people that say they're not on social media.
They're getting all their info through their spouse who's still on social media.
Start small. Start small. Start, like you said, in the morning. I'm going to say hello and kiss my spouse before I open an app. Or we're, you know, we're going to move our phones away at dinner, or not the car, or we're going to go on a walk and leave them at home. Like, what's just one little step that you can take to have better boundaries
and build momentum
and look up and have a conversation with the person that you should be spending the rest of your life with, who's right there in the house with you.
You can't take your device with you when you're gone. So like, you might as well spend time with the people around you in the meantime. So, hopefully this is helpful to you. definitely make sure you follow us on social media.
Don't
at
get
Marriage
off.
Puzzle.
Have boundaries, but don't quit it. Follow us, like us, share it.
Share it. Let everybody know about this.
Message us.
Definitely a little bit of I don't know, hypocritical there, but that again, find the right community and make sure that you're getting stuff that's going to build you up. And so hopefully this was that for you today. And so make sure you check us out on social. Make sure you follow us. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you can get notified when a new episode comes out. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good one.
See ya.